The Labour Party has become a nest of paedophile apologists. That's Kemi Badenoch's damning verdict at this week's PMQs.
Has Keir Starmer's week from hell just got even worse with the new revelations about his former head of comms, Matthew Doyle?
The issue here is that Number 10 could say in these cases, we knew about these things, but on balance, we made this decision because we thought Peter Mandelson would be a great ambassador. We believed Matthew Doyle was not a friend with this man anymore and would make a very good peer. They haven't done that.
They denied that they knew what they knew.
What they tried to do is say it's all on them, they lied to us, and we never knew. But we now know that that itself is a lie. I regret to inform you that Keir has decided that Keir should be Keir.
Oh dear.
It raises the question of who he was before. Norman Wisdom, the Duchess of Malfi. We don't know. But now we are seeing the real Keir Starmer, who turns out to be a man whose father was a toolmaker.
Really? My God.
He should have told us this sooner.
I know. I wish I'd known that.
He turns out to be a class warrior who is both angry and vituperative.
Please translate vituperative.
Well, whereas before he just got beat up at Prime Minister's questions, now he's trying to land some blows himself. But the problem he has is that even if he changes who he is, you can't alter the political context.
Can we get on to PMQs in just a minute, but just discuss Keir Starmer saying he's working class?
Yeah.
He isn't working class, okay? I'm going to apply this mantra or this dictum to my own family. My grandfather was an ice cream salesman, okay? He stood in vans on the weekend and sold ice creams along with his sons and daughter who helped out in the family business. He then self-improved because he sold ice creams and moved on to selling things on market stalls and eventually running a restaurant. He was working class. That's my father's father. But when my father got into grammar school, ended up studying medicine at university and becoming a GP, my father ceased to inherit his father's working class status.
Right.
In exactly the same vein, just because your dad is a toolmaker doesn't mean you're working class, because you then in turn went to a grammar school that became private, studied at the same university as me, University as Leeds, did the same subject, law, ended up becoming a barrister, and then were director of public prosecutions. So you aren't the same as your dad, Keir Starmer. You're not working class. Why is he pretending to do this, first of all? And why does he think that's going to give the public any more sympathy for him? It's just another lie.
Also, his father was a skilled labourer. They owned a semi-detached house in Surrey. Nowadays, for most middle-class people, those are things beyond their wildest dreams.
Yes. It has also been suggested that after he learnt how to make tools, that Keir Starmer's father had a role running the factory that he worked in, so that he ascended into a degree of seniority that isn't quite reflected in the "my father was a toolmaker" description of what his father did for a living.
Whoever he was, one of the appealing things about Keir Starmer was supposed to be that he was a public servant who just got on with the job. And part of the problem is that he has chosen, since being leader of the opposition, to make politics personal, attacking Tories for personal reasons, presenting himself as above reproach, which, to bring us to the substance of PMQs, is why this one went so horribly wrong. He has tried to close the door on the Peter Scandelson affair, which was about someone lying about their connections to a convicted paedophile and then working in government, only for the door to creak back open like in a horror movie to another affair which involves someone lying about their connections to a convicted paedophile while working in government.
Yes.
Enter Matthew Doyle.
So this is the former Downing Street head of communications who, it's been revealed, was offered a peerage. A day later, it emerges, thanks to the Sunday Times and its reporter Gabriel Pogrund, that he has campaigned for a man called Sean Morton.
In Scotland.
Who,
long time ago.
Okay, a long time ago. But by that point that...
In 2017. Yeah.
By the point that Matthew Doyle campaigned for him, Matthew Doyle knew that he had been charged...
Yes.
Tim, with possessing indecent images of children.
He was a Labour councillor. He was seeking re-election. When he was charged, the local Labour Party withdrew their support for him, but he continued to run as an independent, and some people who believed that he was innocent came and campaigned for him, and one of those was Matthew Doyle. It's important to note that when Doyle was campaigning for him, he had not yet been found guilty.
Yes.
Which he would be later on.
He had been charged, though.
So this is one might argue, this is another case where someone chooses to believe that a friend is not guilty of the thing of which they've been accused. Whatever the relationship between Doyle and this man thereafter, I don't think we should give people the misleading impression that Doyle was campaigning for him after he was convicted.
Okay, fine.
Right. Doyle then went on to have a career in the Labour Party. He became Director of Communications, and then, as you said, the news came out that he was going to be put forward for a peerage. This is back in early December. Immediately, it then is revealed that he had a relationship with this now convicted paedophile. So Number 10 knew in early December.
Yes. So we have two situations where Downing Street knew about the links of two individuals in their own government and their links to convicted paedophiles.
Yes. And yet they proceeded.
And they proceeded.
With Doyle going forward for a peerage.
Also, can I just point out that this newspaper, I had forgotten I had co-contributed to a piece in January 2024. It's a lengthy piece written with my colleagues Tony Diver and Victoria Ward, laying bare the true extent of Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, exactly what it involved, the allegations, even suggestions around the leaking of confidential information. I appreciate that it was backed up by the Epstein documents, but I was reminded that we had written this piece in January 2024, and by the way, as we reported this week, it had been shown to the Prime Minister.
Right.
So we have prima facie evidence that Number 10 saw a 2,000-word piece by 3 Telegraph's journalists.
And this is it.
Laying it all out before them, and yet still they appointed Peter Mandelson.
And this is the key thing. I don't like judging people for maintaining relationships with people who have been accused. And I also don't think we should be in the business of saying you cannot have a public career if at some point you've known a convict. That would be a ridiculous rule to apply. The issue here is that Number 10 could say in these cases, we knew about these things, but on balance, we made this decision because we thought Peter Mandelson would be a great ambassador. We believed Matthew Doyle was not a friend with this man anymore and would make a very good peer. They haven't done that.
They denied that they knew what they knew.
What they tried to do is say it's all on them, they lied to us, and we never knew. But we now know that that itself is a lie.
Also, in Keir Starmer's case, it's even more damning because his entire career history is built on being a prosecutor of actual criminals.
Exactly.
And making judgments of character.
And as Stephen Flynn said at Prime Minister's Questions.
Mr. Speaker, if I've just listened to the Prime Minister correctly, he's essentially rolled the same pitch in relation to Matthew Doyle as he did with Peter Mandelson, that they weren't clear with him. He appears to be the most gullible former Director of Public Prosecutions in history.
So when you say it was disastrous, you mean for the Prime Minister? What was the mood inside? Because obviously, if you're watching it on TV or listening to it at home, you can hear the "Wah!" and everyone, clap, clap, here, yes, he's here. So they tried to rouse the House when he arrived.
They did, and he opened with a nice gag about he always has to report that he's had meetings with his ministerial colleagues, and he said, I've had quite a few of those this week. And sitting not far behind him was Wes Streeting, who was wearing a big rosette that read, Where's for Prime Minister? So there was a sort of a mood of apprehension. How is he going to play this? It wasn't the fullest chamber I've ever seen. I don't think the whips brought out every single Labour MP, and there were a few faces that I would expect to see there that I didn't. Who knows? Holidays are about to begin. Recess is coming. Some people may have gone home early. But nonetheless, they were sort of waiting to see how he would play this. And the tack that he chose was to refuse to be beaten by the accusations of harbouring friends of paedophiles and instead to turn things around and fight back with a bit of class war.
So the best form of defence is attack. I did find it quite astonishing as I listened on my way back from Politics Live today that he has reverted to blaming the Tories.
Yes, Liz Truss came up.
Wow.
And as did austerity. Here is an interesting exchange that captures it very well between Ed Davey and Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, to appoint one paedophile supporter cannot be excused as misfortune. To appoint two shows a catastrophic lack of judgment. The Right Honourable Gentleman once told this House that when a Prime Minister refuses to take responsibility, and I quote, "It only serves to convince people that things cannot get better, that governments cannot improve people's lives, and that progress is not possible because politics does not work." Does he still agree with himself? And does he share my fear that that is exactly what is happening now?
Minister. People in this country, millions of people, have been let down for years and years and years. And one of the reasons was austerity, which his party supported. He should take accountability and take responsibility for what he has inflicted on this country.
There'll be many people who Labour's just given the vote to who won't remember austerity. So it's
Yes, that's right.
Lumping every problem in Britain onto the coalition, I think, is a bit of a stretch. Nonetheless, that's the kind of thing that does excite the Labour benches, as does having a pop at the SNP. But when it came to arguing with Kemi, she just came across as the better lawyer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is demonstrating stratospheric levels of delusion if he thinks the problem is on this side of the House. And he didn't say anything about why the Cabinet Secretary is going. We know the truth. It is because he is throwing everyone under a bus except himself. And, Mr. Speaker, the Mandelson episode was not an isolated incident. A few weeks ago, he announced a peerage for one Matthew Doyle, his former Director of Communications. Immediately after that, the Sunday Times published on the front page that Doyle campaigned for a man charged with child sex offences. Yet, despite the Prime Minister knowing this, he gave Doyle a job for life in the House of Lords anyway. Why?
And Badenoch has followed through on her attack on the appointment of Matthew Doyle now by demanding to see the vetting documents that Downing Street relied upon when it elevated him.
The Mandy story.
Well, indeed, to the House of Lords. I mean,
yes.
All of these documents that we're meant to be getting at any given time, Tim,
yes.
are presumably going to say that. I mean, we've had jokes in the past, haven't we? What was the vetting around Peter Mandelson? Is your name Peter? Is your surname Mandelson? Do you know where the UK embassy is in the US? Could you name the US president? Can you spell Washington?
Yes.
Seemingly, the Matthew Doyle appointment, because this is also raising huge questions about who does end up in the House of Lords.
Yes.
What happened was Matthew Doyle was credited with helping to kind of reinvent Labour in the aftermath of Jeremy Corbyn, but he couldn't go the distance as Director of Communications because of all of this internal wrangling, perhaps also involving Morgan McSweeney.
Yes.
They have to let him go, but we must give him a reward. And this is how we get into this situation where the House of Lords is filled with people who are rewarded for failure.
You say we must give them a reward. I did notice that in the WhatsApp messages that Wes Streeting leaked, his own messages, one of them begins by Mandelson saying, "Why has Doyle been sacked?"
Yeah.
And Wes says he should go and work for you in the United States. I'm not saying either of those two men knew anything about it, but it speaks to the boys' club style of government that surrounds Keir Starmer.
Not even the Labour women, because they know he always puts the Downing Street Boys Club first. And how dare he criticise us?
Listening to Kemi's questions, it's clever because she could ask a really big question that says, you've done this, 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 and this. By just asking a laser-focused one, you don't let him off, because if you give a very big question, he can choose to answer any bit of it.
Yes.
By just saying what's changed, either he has to say, or if he doesn't say, it's noticeable that he didn't. And as the questions went on, when he attempted again and again to pivot away from being asked a question about harbouring paedophile apologists, as Kemi put it.
We weren't the ones stuffing government with hypocrites and paedophile apologists. He can't build a team, Mr. Speaker. He has no plan. He can't even run his own office, let alone the country. He is now dealing with a new scandal of appointing someone who campaigned for a man convicted of having indecent pictures of girls as young as 10.
Into attacking Liz Truss or the Tories who've defected to reform. The problem with that response is that plays well to the benches behind him. But precisely because the Tories are so irrelevant right now, deflecting from paedophile apologia to, well, you've lost some people to reform, just sounds really crass.
It's really crass.
We're not here to discuss the silly story of Suella or Rob have joined reform. Nobody cares about that outside W1.
We're not interested in this week.
Today we're discussing the Friends of Paedophile story that you need to address.
Yeah. And also the clue is in the name, Prime Minister's questions. Can you please answer some of them? This is the other frustration which actually Badenoch is playing into, this constant frustration among the public, even if I'm interviewing politicians on the show, that they simply can't answer the question.
Yes.
He then goes into the House and I think doesn't give us anything concrete at all. All we got was him saying, quite ironically, actually, Tim, I've taken responsibility. Well, no, the whole point is that you haven't.
Yes,
you haven't
because you're claiming you were lied to.
You haven't taken any responsibility
and you've
for
not resigned.
Exactly.
Maybe he shouldn't, but it's so odd how he lacks the ability to respond to these things. According to one poll, the Politico poll, 52% of the public think he should resign, and only 15% say he shouldn't. Mehdi Hassan, the journalist, asked this question from America. He's British, but he's living in America. Why is there so much anger, personal anger towards Keir Starmer, when Britain's not that bad off? Whisper it, but it's not that bad off.
No, it's broken. It's broken.
Okay, and he's not the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. And it does seem very... I think a lot of it comes back to he embodies all the frustrations of modern life, of dealing with systems that don't work, with people who you think are lying to you. It's the whole... Please do not abuse our staff.
Yes.
When you're at a train station and the train is an hour late.
Yes.
and there is a big poster saying, please don't abuse the staff. It's like, well, I want to.
Yes.
Because the train's late.
Yes.
And you saying, please don't abuse the staff makes me oddly want to abuse them even more.
No. Well, also, but it's the gaslighting.
Yeah.
The other thing is the gaslighting.
It's a misdirection. The issue is my train is late. It's not how the staff feel. And it's the same with Keir Starmer. And the more the story becomes about Keir Starmer, about Keir now being Keir, which we know is going to mean more stories about tools and broken windows, the more I dislike him. And I just want my train to run on time.
Also, if you're going to make it personal, Prime Minister, then expect some real critique of your personality.
Yes.
Or frankly, the vacuum that is your personality.
Yes.
So if you're going to respond to every crisis with this sort of technocratic, well, we followed the process. No, man. You know, the reason why the British public can't connect with you is because they don't even know who you are. You're like a mirage of yourself in the House of Commons at the dispatch box, sort of strangely robotic response.
No difference from every other week, just louder.
Also, by the way, the other thing that people really, I think, object to is this self-styled paragon of virtue and this man of great decency actually appearing to be really quite arrogant and patronising and full of himself. So he's meant to be this man of the people and yet appears to have no sort of introspection at all, no ability to recognise his own flaws.
And he brought up the Rob Jenrick white faces thing again, implying that Kemi is racist or tolerant of racism. She's black.
I wish she'd turned around.
It'd be like accusing Keir Starmer of being anti-tool.
Also, he is, I'm afraid, I know men don't like it, he's such a mansplainer. And yet he's banging on about how much he does for women and girls. She landed the really good point about, sorry, you're running a boys' club here that has actually briefed against various women in Labour, still can't elect a female leader and all the rest of it. So even that in itself is a grotesque contradiction. We keep on hearing this thing about he's done so much for the victims of sex crimes. And it's like, well, he had to be like hauled over a barrel to have the rape gang inquiry. Let's not forget that. So the gaslighting of it all, I'm saying this, but the public knows I'm doing the opposite. Why doesn't he understand? And it's because he is in this ivory tower. Is it because, in a way, if he was a man of the people, he would understand these sentiments? Again, I keep on going back to it. I keep on going back to once asking John Mann, the former MP for Bassetlaw, who was the least popular colleague he ever brought up to the Working Man's Club. And it was Keir Starmer. And I said, why? And he said because he didn't wear a suit and tie and because they regarded him as a, quote, brill-creamed spiv. The good people of Bassetlaw said, I think he spends a bit too much time on his hair. And I think that's a point. So this is the other thing. You're trying to convince us that you are the working class man of the people. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're Holborn and St Pancras. You're elite class. We know best. We know better than the little people. Nobody thinks that I can be besmirched because I'm a decent person.
Speaking of hair, there was a magnificent example of the comb-over of the week. I won't say who it was.
Oh, come on.
I'll leave it to people to watch it back. But when this MP stood up and spoke, Stephen Flynn started sort of making exaggerated signals over his own hair, parodying the comb-over, which I think is a bit rich because Stephen just doesn't have anything to comb over.
I know. Well, if you have something to comb over, you might just want to comb it over.
But while we're talking about insults, we have to mention the rather sparkling one from the Gaza Independent. Reform were in the Commons, Nigel Farage breaking his own rule and working from the House.
Wow.
See what I did there?
Yes, I can.
And behind them, Ayoub Khan stood up, Gaza Independent, who, bearing in mind, literally beneath him is the Reform Party, asked this question.
Mr. Speaker, rubbish is building up right beneath my very nose. It's becoming...
Easy, Tiger.
It's becoming a serious problem in Birmingham.
Now, did any of them find that funny?
Richard Tice thought it was hilarious. Nigel just has a face of granite throughout PMQs. I don't know what he's thinking about, but it's not politics. Sarah Pochin looked horrified. But when it was all over, what the cameras wouldn't have captured is Nigel got up and patted Ayoub Khan on the shoulder in a sort of a nice one, mate kind of way. So those two, that little corner of the Gaza Independence and the Reform
It's like the naughty step of Parliament.
It is, but they stand up and slag each other off. But when the cameras are off, they seem to actually be quite friendly.
Well, that's nice, isn't it? Zia Youssef objected to this cross-party collaboration. Do you remember when people had appeared on a TV show together and then had a photo?
In the green room.
Yes, had a photo afterwards, and he was like, we shouldn't be behaving like this.
No.
We absolutely should, if we're to find common ground in politics.
Yeah, but also politicians are human beings, and one can forget that when you hear Keir Starmer speak. But they are
Is
human.
Keir Starmer human?
He's part Amstrad. But they are human beings, for heaven's sake. And if they do start treating each other off-screen the way they treat each other on-screen, well, then we're going to have a civil war.
If you're enjoying our journalism, why not sign up to From the Editor, our free email newsletter? Start your day with the latest news and opinion, plus our bite-sized puzzles. Scan the QR code to sign up free today.